Hey, everybody that's hopping on. We are just giving Stephen, our expert, a second to join, and then we can go ahead and get started here. But I'm glad everybody's joining. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you guys are located in. So excited for you guys to be with us. Hey, Stephen.
Hello, hello. How are you,
How
man?
Good. How are you?
Doing awesome. Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you as well. How are things going?
Things are going well. Things are going well. I'm traveling a little bit today, so I'm at
Yeah.
a co-working space. Pardon the lighting,
I
but
know you're good.
it's good to be here.
Yeah, we're definitely excited. And it's also nice to be able to go into those co-working spaces again. I know that's something we used to do a lot with our team. So it's nice to see that those are opening back up and everything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. It is a nice change of pace to get out of the house.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Uh,
Um, Yeah, so we have a couple people with us already. I figured people will just start trickling in, as we're going along here. I don't want to wait too long because I know you have a lot of useful information to dive into in your presentation. But I thought we could kick it off with some intros, just introducing ourselves, a little bit of our backgrounds, and then we can obviously dive right in. But so my name is Brianna. I am on Leadfeader's partnerships team. So I work with our agencies in the Americas, helping them use Leadfeader for their agency sites and the client sites as well. And so my colleague actually introduced me to Stephen a little over a month ago. And so she actually helped a lot in putting this webinar together. And so I know he has a lot of exciting stuff to go through, and I'm excited to listen to it and learn from it as well. But Stephen, do you want to jump in and give a little bit of your background as well?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my name's Steve Perchkov. I'm the founder of Artist Sales Academy. We're a B2B growth and business development agency. So we help a lot of consultancies, agencies, tech companies with their business model, with their offers, with their messaging, and then we actually help execute a plan to get calls on their calendar and to get deals moving through.
Yeah, awesome. Um, all right. So, like I said, I know you have a lot of good stuff planned for us today. So, we can actually jump into that whenever you're ready. Just so everybody knows, we did save some time at the end for Q&A. But as we're going along, if anybody does have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A section. And Stephen, if you don't mind, I can just fire those questions away as they're coming along, and then we can save the session at the end for just any like wrap up last minute questions there.
Of course, my pleasure.
All
Should I go
right.
ahead and share my screen?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, and
So
two, just so everybody knows, this call is being recorded. So you guys can too always send it out to any of your colleagues if they've missed it or anything, if you want to share the information as well. So just want to throw that out there too.
awesome. So the purpose of this call really is to just introduce you to an approach, what we think is the best approach, the most sensible approach to close larger contracts, to get in front of more people with even having these sort of opportunities, particularly for consultancies, agencies, software companies, all that fun stuff. The sad truth for most consulting agencies, as you may know, as I've certainly experienced in my life, is that there's this revenue roller coaster that a lot of folks are on where there's not a lot of consistency, security, predictability in sales, a lot of churn, a lot of hustle, trying to get work done, trying to drum up new business, not sure the right process to make the magic happen, to get a consistent, healthy, scalable, growing business, and just kind of bouncing around from tactic to tactic, doing your best to get business going, or for a lot of folks feeling a little overly reliant on referrals. As much as they're wonderful and such an important part of a business, not having some of that control is a hindrance for a lot of business owners. So What if instead, right, which would be presented today, there was more of a reliable system to get opportunities on your calendar, confidence in your ability to close these larger deals. You knew the hooks and messaging to tell these prospects in order to get them interested, motivated to hop on calls with you, work with you, and ultimately you had a strategy in place to double and triple your business in years, right? Double and triple your pipeline in months, but doubling and tripling your business might take a little longer, right? Depending. So that's what we're going to be discussing here today, and showing you through a couple of case studies as well how this is done. One of the case studies that I'll share is from a fintech consultant who was able to close $1 million plus contracts with cold leads from a number of Fortune 1000 companies, big four accounting firms. And there was a lot that went into making that actually happen and opening doors with dozens of decision makers at these large companies and then moving those conversations into an actual sale, as well as looking at some examples from Qualia, who we helped double the sales pipeline of every single one of their reps, which ultimately helped that lead them to an exit about a year later. So what are they seeing, right? What's working with them, and why are they successful? The main reason is they had the strategy in place to close larger deals. They had the right offer, and then they had a system to attract those clients and actually close them, right? So that's what we're going to be discussing today, right? I'm going to share everything as much as I know as possible in this 1 hour presentation to give you a sense of how to do exactly that. It's especially for B2B business owners. That's my specialty. People who want to grow beyond referrals, predictable acquisition system, and want to reach hard to reach decision makers to close these larger deals and have happy clients that would vouch for you. So by the end of this, you'll have the mindset and the strategy to increase your retainer and close larger deals. You'll know what it takes to have a sustainable lead gen and business development process via LinkedIn and email. That's our specialty. And understand some of the gaps that you may be experiencing and why you're not delivering this stuff. You already know my background, so I won't get too much into this, but we have helped over 200 plus businesses at this point in the last 3 years with exactly the sort of things that I'm mentioning. Many of our clients are targeting larger deals. We either help them create offers to close larger deals, or they already are, and we just help them get in front of them and help them develop a sales process to bring them in. So, right, let's talk about it. Let's get into the actual details of how this all works. So the 3 phases, right? The 3 phases that I'm going to be sharing with you today to actually make all this happen, right? The first phase, right? Like, we don't start with just lead gen right away. The first phase is it's important to dig into your business right now and understand how your offer can be improved. A lot of agency owners sell themselves too short, right? They undercharge, and they sell small engagements because they think that's the easiest way to get a sale in. They don't think enough of themselves, enough of their services, enough of what they're able to do. And they just don't have a big enough vision for their client and for themselves and the results that they can offer. So they go for more of a frictionless sale that undersells, maybe gets a deal in or someone through the door, rather than a sale with a little bit more friction, but creates sustainability and stability in a business where you can charge more, right? And have clients last for longer. So that's the first most important piece to kind of recognize. The next piece is setting up a process to get actual calls on the calendar, right? Like, once you have that offer, like, what's the messaging and what's the process to actually get those people on the calendar? And there's a number of things we're going to discuss, both in terms of creating new funnels and also leveraging existing assets to make all that happen. And then ultimately, we're going to discuss what the sales process actually looks like when you're working on these larger deals. So first off, let's get into how to maximize your offer and your lifetime value of your customers. The first part, I don't have a slide on this, but I have to bring it up. I mean, where it starts above all else is your mindset and your energy. it's very hard to make any of these changes if you don't believe that you should be working with a different caliber of client who will treat you differently, who will pay you differently. If you're not able to make that shift, then none of this will work, right? Like it really is a little bit more woo in how this starts for a lot of business owners. So that's super important. Like I won't get too much into all that, but like those beliefs have to be in there, and that's something that we help clients with. But that belief and that desire has to be there, and there has to be a bit of an active faith to change what's working now in order to get what's working better in the future, right? I know this from personal experience, right? And so, as we mentioned, like a lot of agency owners, they'll undercharge, underestimate what the market will pay, and they sell smaller outcomes than they're able to sell, as opposed to the biggest outcome possible, which is often what a new client actually wants from a partner, right? They don't want someone to do just a podcast. They want a podcast that'll generate leads, awareness, and sales, right? They don't want someone to just get them calls. They want someone who gets them great calls that translate into revenue potential. And that's where a lot of people don't look. So what happens is you get a lot of small clients, that more churn, more stress, more fires, higher operational costs, more revenue roller coaster. You may end up hating your business at some point. Your team may end up hating you if you pass it on to them. All that stuff happens. So I've discussed a little bit of how you change this already, right? First and foremost, it's the mindset and the energy that you can charge more. If you're charging 2K a month, you can easily charge 5K a month with a couple of tweaks in your mindset and your offer. You can charge 10K a month. You can get people to sign instead of 3-month engagements, 1-year engagements, right? These things are possible once you're able to step into that place of it being possible, right? Many agencies are doing the same thing in your vertical, in your market right now. The way that you do it sort of more tactically is that you're selling the outcome and vision, and you discover that during the sales conversation. You don't want someone who just to try you out to get you a couple calls. You want someone who wants to take their business from 5 million to 10 million and wants you to kind of reverse engineer how that can happen from the lens of what you're able to do, right? And the other way is just to look at your past client successes, past wins, find where your passion lies in that, right? Where your happiest clients lie, where you get the best results, and start honing in there, right? Your best services, your most profitable ones, your most successful ones, your most successful target market, right? I, for example, have found that we like working with tech companies a lot, right? We get them really good results, but we like working less with super high growth VC backed tech startups because they're just more difficult to work with, and it's not fun, right? So there's other people who love that. Even though I come from that world, that's my background. We prefer to work with tech consultants and tech companies that aren't in massive VC funded, pressure world, because that just percolates and permeates everywhere throughout the organization. So everything that I'm sharing with you, I've done, right? I've doubled our retainer. I've 4x the lifetime value of our customers, right? It was very hard because we built a 7-figure business in a very crazy way, which is just pure hustle, churn and burn. Some clients stay, some clients leave. And it was very hard to get out of that energy of anxiety of like, oh, there's one left, let's get a bunch more and like push forward. And that kind of energy was just driving me for years of just feeling like, oh my God, we lost a client. Like, get into hustle mode, Steve. I push, that anxiety drives me, and we get not just that client, but 2 or 3 more. And that's just how the business grew, right? And it's not a healthy way to live life. It's also not healthy to run a business that way, where my team, eventually I got myself out of some of the stress, just the stress of the management of the business and the sales, but I wasn't fulfilling. But my team now was fulfilling on clients maybe who weren't the best fit, who would stay for a little while and then would leave, right? I wasn't qualifying as strong as I could because I just wanted revenue in and see what would happen. So it took a big shift in my mentality, a big shift in my own self-worth and what's possible to make that switch to start working on higher ticket offers and just being in the mindset that this is what we deserve. We're good enough. We get great results for the clients that are fit. Let's focus there and just like go to town, right?
So it's almost like you guys were like the guinea pig of things, right? So it's like you're just like saying, okay, what's going to work for me and my team, figuring that out, and then now offering it to your clients as well. Is that kind of how you guys got
Uh,
things rolling?
100%. Yeah.
Hmm.
100%. Yes. Totally, totally, totally. Um, and our previous business model was mostly geared towards lead gen, but
Hmm.
that the way we ended up being able to charge more is by adding more consultative value, right? That's the other
Hmm.
thing with a lot of agencies. When they're simply selling a service, they get put into the bucket of a task monkey or
Hmm.
an employee almost. But when you start selling a strategic vision and a plan and having execution as part of it, you're now a
Hmm.
consultant who has an execution arm. You're
Yes.
now a trusted advisor who has an execution arm. That switch, um, where we had that already with some of our clients, but we just kind of fell into that role.
Hmm.
Once we started strategically placing in that role initially, all of our new clients started becoming that way, looking at us that way, and then
Hmm.
they pay more. They pay more because you're not. It's much harder to get good advice and good consulting than it is to just pay someone to run SEO or run ads or something like that. Though a lot of people are a dime a dozen there, and it's hard. It's commoditized services, even though some do it very, very well, some
Hmm.
poorly. But a lot of them look like commoditized service. But when they hear you speak and they hear you making their shifts and transformation in the organization and like giving a
Yeah.
real strategic lens, that's harder to come by, and people just appreciate it more.
Yeah. No, 100%. And two, you said trusted advisor. And I feel like the experiences that you guys have done in the experiments with your own company almost helps build that level of trust with them, because it's not like you're going to recommend something to them that maybe failed for you guys, or maybe you haven't tested out yourself already.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. Yeah, after doing it for ourselves, I couldn't help but after going through that process for ourselves, and we got help, we got a consultant to help us with that.
Hmm.
I couldn't like that learning was like, holy crap, I can't believe I've been doing it this way for years.
Yep.
I need to share this. Like all our clients could benefit from some of these ideas and just this extra effort that we
Hmm.
have been sharing, right? So
Yeah. No,
it's
amazing.
part of it. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Hmm.
Feels awesome. So, right, the next part is once you get to the point where you're super clear on an offer, right? So, what do I mean by a bigger offer? Like on our end, we used to sell 10 to 20 calls a month was the offer, right? Like we started selling 5 to 10x guaranteed ROI on our services, right? We started selling agencies and consultancies that were near the $1 million mark, half a million to $1 million mark, who wanted to get to the $2 to $5 million mark or to the $10 million mark, right? Like once we started making that shift and we became those partners to guide them on that journey, or part of the team to guide them on that journey, um, that became a much stronger offer, and just help get us get more results for clients, and just have them look at us a little bit more differently. Um, the other thing that helped is that we spent a lot more time on the process of getting it right to attract hyper qualified B2B decision makers, right? When you charge less, you just have less wiggle room and budget and desire to go in depth in the way that makes sense and the client actually wants for their business, right? When you charge a little more, you have more bandwidth and desire to help, and you have a team that you can hire and pay more who also be more motivated. So oftentimes in our smaller offer, we didn't go as in depth into what we could actually do to make clients as successful as possible, right? Like one of the major things that we are going much more in depth with is how to maximize existing hidden profit pockets, right? Like we did this with some, not with others, but now it's just a very, very, very big part of our process. And that's where everyone should start who's on this call, like right now, like have someone elicit from you or elicit from yourselves where there may be hidden profit pockets. So give you an example. We recently onboarded a client who is in the user experience, user research space. And through that audit, right, we realized that like they have Facebook, Microsoft, and HP as clients. And a lot of their larger deals are coming from them. And although we want to get them into other clients, other companies of a similar worth, right? Like getting them into those companies could be a 3 to 6, 9 month process, right? Meanwhile, a lot of engagements are coming just from these 3 large clients. So a lot of time we spent, which is like, why don't we spend the first 3 to 6 months maximizing those accounts? Like there's so many people in those companies that could hire you, and you're already in, you're an accepted vendor, right? You've went through that process. Let's spend months there while having this other campaign like of marketing done to like get you in these new ones. But like all our wins in the first half of the year is going to come from maximizing these existing accounts. And the specificity and the clarity we're going into that is like is very high, right? And they appreciate us thinking that way. They also have an email list, first degree connects on LinkedIn, someone on their team that's joining who's got a lot of connects at Microsoft. They're a member of a organization that has a lot of their stakeholders within it. So all these things we surface all these things, and we want to put all our attention there first, because that's where I'm going to get the ROI the quickest. That's where we'll justify ourselves. That's where we won't have to get into difficult conversations a few months in, like, hey, I'm not sure we want to continue for the year or two, right? We're going to get those wins right away. So that's been good. And then the other part is a funnel, right? To actually market, to get new people in. So the first one, profit pockets. The second one, how can we get a funnel to get new accounts, completely new things into the mix? So mention a couple of these, right? Hidden pockets could be social media contacts, CRM of past prospects you've spoken to, but kind of died out, existing LinkedIn connections, an email list, past colleagues, organizations that you're a part of, all these sorts of things. So when you have this new snazzy idea, offer, right? Like people want to hear about it. So you can just like hit these people up once more with this message, with this offer, and they will surface back up. And yeah, and many of them will come to you, right? Like, and many will come to you to hear what this new thing is.
And I think too, it kind of goes back to the part of being a trusted advisor, because like you said, you've already sold into them. You've already had those initial conversations with them. So when you do have something, new for them, they're going to be more keen to listen and hear what you have to say.
100%. Yes. 100% right. And yeah, and even some of them who maybe just, you never sold anything to them, but they're just on your list, or they're just existing LinkedIn. They accepted you. You had some interaction with them. That already makes them like 5 times warmer than someone completely cold. So figuring out strategies to start with what you have is a super, super great place to start with BD. So that's really good. I'll give you just a quick example. Like when I started, I because my career had been in tech startup sales, so I kind of had a lot of this stuff internally. But when I started my business, this email took me like 2 or 3 years to write. Right, like I had an idea for a business, a consulting business that I wanted to do, but I never pulled the trigger. I just like thought about it too much, built website, like all this kind of stuff. And then eventually, like a year, 2.5, a year or two later, like I grew up the courage to like send this one email to 10 people in my network. This email is 5 sentences long. It contains a link of a case study that I did for a previous employer of the results that we got them. And I sent it out to 10 people in my network. 2 became clients 2 weeks later, and I was making an income that was higher than my salary, right? So that was like, it was ridiculous, right? It's like I could have done that a long time ago, but I waited so long because just, hesitation, nerves, whatever, should I do this or not? So it can be as simple as this for a lot of you, right? Like you got someone amazing results, you have a new offer. Hey, just reaching out. We haven't spoken for a while, but I got this new idea, new offer based on some cool results. Like it's designed to get these kind of companies to 100 million or save them X amount of money or this or that. In case you'd like to see how it works, check out the case study here. Anyway, great speaking. Would love to help however I can. Stay in touch. Like that is gonna work if you send it to the right people.
And it's such a simple message too, saying like, we've done this for this person, we could do it for you too. And it's almost like you're not asking a lot to like, just click on this case study or let's just chat about it real quick. So it kind of leaves the ball in their court and an open door for them to walk in and say, okay, I'm ready for these conversations.
Exactly right. Yes. Subtle. I think you're getting like the subtlety of it really, really well.
Mhm.
Um, it's like in a lot of messaging and outreach, there's a lot of people who do sort of the virtual coffee, and
Mhm.
there's not much that could be nice with some contacts, just like, hey, let's meet. But a lot of times, people who've done that kind of outreach ends up with a lot of conversations without much of a purpose. Then
Yep.
there's people who pitch too hard, and it's just like, I don't want to talk to this person. There's
Right.
this balance that's just like, hey, like, here's something. Anyway, I'd love to catch up, right? Like, and then when you do catch up, it'll be likely, at least in some part,
Mhm.
around the thing that you dropped in that message. And so there's a little bit of purpose and conversation that will have that will be to your, to your advantage and their interest.
Yep.
So that's the warm list, right? Like, but then the other part is just like building a funnel to get people who don't know you into a funnel to start to get to know you. The fastest way to do that is immediately with cold outreach, right? Like that's immediately going to start working. Direct outreach via LinkedIn and email, messages that look like this. I'll be getting into more detail with this with you guys, but like just strong, like non-salesy messages to a good target audience where you're positioned well, you'll be able to get some immediate calls. That's pretty powerful. The other portion is what I call mythic content. Um, and this is just content that tells a story. Stories with subtext and dog whistles that whisper in your prospect's ear and pull them towards you, and only they can hear it, right? For everyone else, it's just an engaging story, but for them, they're like, there's something about this person. I need to speak with them. So that's the kind of content I'll share with you guys in a little bit more detail. Um, the other funnel that works really well is an executive briefing funnel, especially for larger accounts that you may be selling. So it's hard to just like one call close $100,000 deal cold. But if you start funneling these people into a weekly call that you guys are having, and maybe 5, 10 people show up, right? But 5, 10 really good people show up. It's like a sales, it's like a presentation to them. And, one or two of them ends up being a client at a retainer that's double your retainer at the lifetime value that's larger than it is currently, then it's worth it, right? And you end up having less sales calls, and there's a faster sales velocity for a lot of these calls. So that works really well. The key to all this stuff when you're doing, especially the outreach piece, is what I call scalable personalization, right? Scalable personalization is where you can write personalized messages at scale, right? When you can blend clever business development ideas, empathy, and technology to send messaging at scale. If you spend all day personalized message send one email at a time, super deep personalized, it takes up a lot of time, and it's often not going to work very well because you don't know if that person will read it, and you spend a lot of time writing a message that someone doesn't read, right? If you just send spammy messages at scale, no one will read it anyway, and you'll be very annoying. But if you can do like mini campaigns with good messaging, it's going to sound personalized, it's going to sound relevant, even though it didn't take you as much time to create. Like that's where you want to be. That's the strategy you want to find with the direct outreach piece, at least. Um, so just getting into this stuff a little bit more, right? Like again, you don't want to blast, uh, but doing this from a B2B perspective allows you to essentially be very, very targeted, right? Um, Taking care in creating that list, that perfect target list, and the perfect messaging. Give you an example of a fintech company that we did this with, right? They're in banking and finance consulting, hundreds of use cases and benefits for their services, right? That's what they came to us with. We did this process with them, right? Like, where do we start? How do we help you? And after looking at all the different things that they can do, we decided to settle on one specific thing that their tool does. It helps, their service does. They were helping to expedite banks from one sort of regulatory policy to another, from what was called SOFR to LIBOR. Every major bank in the United States was going through this transition. And is very intensive, right? Very intensive for all those banks to go through that. So they had a service that expedite that a lot, right? Like massively. Why did we decide to focus on this and not all the other things? Well, because we found that it was very easy to get that list together. We found that if we search for LIBOR or SOFR in the title, we're able to pull a list together of people who had that in their title. So these are very, very, very targeted people. With one click, I got the LIBOR and SOFR specialist in all the major banks. That's exactly who they want to speak with. And it's very, very nuanced in that people don't reach out to them very often. So it's not like you're, some of the most over-marketed people to are, let's say, chiropractors, right? Well, nobody's reaching out to these guys really trying to pitch them something so relevant. So that makes it work, right? And it's a pain point that not many people are talking about, and it lent itself to more of a templated, scalably personalized message that sounds very personalized. So it allowed us to get these results at scale without having to try very hard. We positioned as a on her profile. We connected with these people, and after we connected with the first 100 or so, we began writing some initial personal messages and then some scalably personalized messages, right? So you can see this is, right, someone at KPMG who wanted to speak. And we were able to book, on average, around 10 to 20 calls for her a month with exactly who she wanted to speak with. And she's already was selling, a package of services that was in the 6-figure mark. So the message hit a sweet spot. It was most personalized and scalable. We did the same thing via email to complement it. And you can see here, we got pretty high open rates and all that fun stuff. So 10% appointment rate on thousands of prospects at some of the largest companies in the world, right? One appointment out of every 10 sent generated millions of dollars of pipeline and $1 million plus in contracts within the first year for her. So that's a good way where outbound outreach can work really well, right? Another way is, if you don't have something as strong as that, pushing people into a funnel, an executive briefing funnel that works really well. This is an example of that executive briefing funnel that one client we're working with has, right? Very clear offer, 100K a month and beyond. How to double your fees, step back from the day-to-day, and grow your consultancy fast. So this is the landing page. We send it out to people. They clicked it. They see all the awesome results that she's gotten, and they reserve a seat to attend the executive briefing. And that's a really good way to just pile people into an offer without having to hustle to get individual people on a phone call. As for the mythic content piece, it's very hard to see this. I realize that now, but I'm going to be sharing. I'm going to give a couple of goodies away at the end of this presentation. One of the things I'll be sharing is a PDF that we've compiled of about a dozen or so posts that have directly led to new client engagements for us, and a breakdown of those posts, like of how you can basically take that same post and fill in the blanks to get your own clients, right? But the purpose of mythic content essentially is to tell stories from your point of view that walk you and your client through what's called the hero's journey, right? Like you start from a place of challenge, trials, tribulations, a pivotal turning point where you vanquish your foes, and there's success and glory at the other end, and you come back with the fountain of youth, the holy grail, right? Like that's the idea of what the hero's journey is. That's humans are wired to relate to that kind of narrative. And when you can start telling stories like that about a client success that you had, or a personal issue that you had, or a idea that challenges their beliefs and gives them new beliefs that is more accurate and more all-encompassing about your industry or about your service, then you start to get more clout and people start to like you and care about you more and want to work with you. So I can read this one, I think, even though it's pretty much impossible to read, but just this one says, just a quick story, right? I wrote this in order to destroy the idea that we can't work with someone just because we haven't worked in their exact industry, right? That's an objection we sometimes get. So a recent tech company we work with in the e-commerce medical supply space thought their product may be too complicated for us to ever understand. You don't have experience in that. It's too niche. We'd need to spend a lot of time on the phone to ramp you and your team up. I heard the same from a solar panel analytics company, a fintech platform, and an ad tech company that battles ad fraud. I smiled and nodded, but truthfully, I knew that their skepticism would likely be turned into confidence soon enough. We may never possess an equal level of industry specific expertise, but what we have is confidence in how we create ideal customer personas, audiences, messaging, and that drive new consultancies forward, resulting in, and then I list some wins. These are the results our B2B clients can expect, regardless of their niche. The more complex and nuanced the niche, the more opportunity we have to surprise them. So, what happened here? I started with something someone told me, great way to start a post, quotes of what they said, more objections, piling on the difficulty, and then I turn it around with a quick little one-liner saying that, I smiled because I knew their skepticism would grow into success. And then I explained like why, and then I listed some wins to support my point. And then what we're really good at is helping new complex companies with difficult technologies, nuanced offers, find their messaging and hook them up with success, right? So anybody who has this kind of company who reads this and doubts someone like us would read this, and their doubt would be alleviated some, or they'd be at least intrigued to explore and see what we can do for them. And that's exactly what happened after sharing this.
Yeah,
Really
I
cool.
probably think people like you said, similar to you, because even including those objections in there, they're probably thinking, okay, I've heard these same things. So like they must have handled it in a good way. And now I need to know how they handled it. And everybody loves a good success story. Everybody loves a narrative and something just to be able to relate to.
Exactly. Yes. So 100%. So I've tried all kinds of posts, video, placards, inspirational things, memes, all sorts of different types of content. And there's probably room for all of them, to be honest. But the 80-20 rule for us has been just writing text with good stories, with good mythic content structure. So I'll share some of that stuff with you guys. There's also ways to get more engagement on a lot of these posts. Just the way LinkedIn works, if you can get a lot of likes and comments quickly, that's going to get you guys more visibility. And if you can getting those likes and comments from people in your target market who have more of your target market in their audience, that just gets it more and more visibility and allows for like these mini viral posts to happen and spread and infiltrate your ideal target market. So there's ways to do that. I won't get into too much of that here, but there are ways to do that to just get more engagement on your posts. Okay, cool. As you do this, right, a lot of people will come inbound and show interest. A lot of sales leaders lose, or CEOs or founders kind of miss out on opportunities anyway, even though there's interest because they show up in their inbox, but they wait too long to reply back. Too much friction in the scheduling process, or there's too much back and forth convos to actually book the call, and they're not pre-selling the prospect enough after the call is booked. So here's how we make sure that calls get set up well, right? And how to avoid no-shows. Favorite way to do this is like when someone comes on LinkedIn, they're interested to speak. Be quick on the gun to get the call. If it's on LinkedIn, don't spend too much time with the back and forth. What's your email? What's your phone number? What's this? That's how conversations die, because people don't check LinkedIn that often and emails get lost in the shuffle too. But if you can take the next step forward, if they're like, cool, I'd love to speak next week, say something like, or something exactly like, great, I'll send you a calendar. Next week, I'm free Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 1:00 Eastern. I'll send you a calendar invite for Tuesday in case it works for you. Happy to reschedule if another time works better. So they already said they want to speak next week. If you went into the process of what's your email, what day next week, what time, what's your phone number, gonna die. You're not gonna speak to that person almost like 80, 90% of the time. If you act a little proactively, find out their email address either from their LinkedIn profile, get a database like seamless.ai. You can get their email address, proactively put that on their calendar. And then if they need to reschedule, they'll just reschedule on the invite, right? So
Mhm.
that's one big way to do it. Nobody minds you being proactive when they've already shown that they want to meet and speak with you, right? So that's something that we do often. As far as the calendar app, we also often book calls for ourselves through a calendar app. We may not send it to them just because people are less likely to fill out a calendar app, but we will fill it out as them. And doing that, it'll put the meeting invite on both our calendars. But the reason that we do that is because we like to have the calendar app send out a message or two before the call to make them a little warmer. So it'll send out like, hey, before our call, that'll be the subject line. Look forward to our call tomorrow. Read this before our call. Uh, and then send like basically like a case study of, before a call, thought you might like to know a little bit about what we do. Here's a quick, case study, or like before a call. I know we're chatting about, growing your business before a call. Check out a few ideas to help do exactly that. And that would be like a case study. I made it a little bit more about them just now. And that would be a case study of like ideas that they can use through the lens of a client we've had success with. So that's a big thing too. Like your collateral, if it shows your wins through the lens of a clients you've had success with, people love that. All right, I'm going to speed along here just so we have time for Q&A and all that fun stuff and get to the sales process itself. So if you do a lot of this right, like you're getting these people interested and warm on the call, and you're not like hustling to close them. You're having an intelligent conversation to see if they're a fit. Like that's where you want to be. A lot of fulfillment problems happen in the sales process itself, right? Like you close someone too soon. You don't figure out all the information. You close the wrong customer, right? You don't understand their budget. All these sorts of things could hinder the sale or get you the sale in the door, but they're brought on improperly, and it just makes the deal work or the business work worse, basically. A lot of things fall apart in the discovery process, not asking the right questions up front, not showing your consultative expertise up front. Common occurrence is a lot of people are over optimistic about deals going well and just moving it through or thinking it's going to close or whatever without questioning yourself. You have to be a pessimist almost. You have to be an optimistic pessimist where you feel like, your worth, you want the client in, you're going to move the deal forward, but you want to think about all the reasons and all the ways that this could not work, that they could be a bad client, that they are not good, that they're going to do harm to your business, that ways that this deal will not work or you will undercharge, you'll do something wrong, right? By thinking that way, you'll know the kind of questions to ask to turn you into a total optimist, right? So that's where you want to go. A realistic optimist, maybe is a better way to say it. So few B2B businesses have that process in place. So this is the sales process in a nutshell. I'll also include this as a PDF for you guys to review. But ultimately, if you actually take a closer look at this, if you have a PDF version of this, it's much more high resolution. You'll see that there's a couple of stages here. The first stage is the simplest, right? The pre-call, the opening and rapport, right? Just making sure you research the company beforehand, a few minutes of small talk, and then get into a little bit more of the background of yourself and how you can help. You want to be leading though. That's really important. You really want to be leading. Like there's something wrong happening if they just start questioning you many times, right? Like it's got to be framed in a way where they are looking to get questions and you have the questions essentially and they're answering them, right? So one of the ways I do that is, I drop in my pitch, my 10-second pitch, I'll drop a number of things that should be interesting to them. If they're a tech consultancy or an agency, like, yeah, we help, agencies scale past the $10 million mark using a combination of the right offer, messaging, and business development strategy. So like that should spur the right client to start asking me a little bit more questions. And then I would just flip it. Now they're interested, they're my court. And I would kind of start asking them more questions about their business, and they'd be open to share it because they want to know how the heck we do that, right? Once you start doing that, now you're moving into discovery mode, right? You're moving into discovery mode where you're starting to understand them and their business. There's a process in discovery mode, right? There's a form of inquiry that's happening where you're diving deeper through that inquiry. You start on the surface layer and you try to get to the deepest place possible. On the surface layer is like, what do you do? What are your services, right? How can you help? On the deeper level is kind of understanding what their problems are. So why aren't you, so like, how are you getting your leads now? How are you close? Like, what's your sales process? What's your lead generation? Now you're looking at some process, some problems will emerge. You're like, oh, like, how come you're not, how many leads are you getting? Like, oh, a week, 0. Oh, okay, how come? Why 0? So now you're getting into the problem, right? This is like where you want to start surfacing up where the problems lie in their business. They're not getting enough leads. Maybe they don't have the right offer. What's society? Their offers are too small. It's structured wrong. All these sorts of things that I'll be looking for in order to dig up the bigger pains, and then eventually the implication. So like, the implication of not having any leads is that they're not going to have a sustainable business, or they're not going to hit their growth goals, right? So I might ask that or imply that consultatively in that question so they can understand, and that implication is surfaced. When you surface things, it's not hidden anymore. Even though you and they may know it, bringing it into the forefront with words actually makes a huge difference. So that's where you want to go. And you also want to just kind of analyze. So it's a good exercise to just have like, what are all the questions you'd like to know beforehand? It's a good practice. If you're not practicing that, be a good practice. Like, what are all the questions that you'd want to know? And what are all the answers you want to have for them to be your ideal client, right? Like that ladder of like the things you want to tick off for them to be an ideal client, and asking the questions to discover that. Really good exercise. Once you have all that, in that process, right? Like one of the ways you're building rapport, number of ways, right? One is by being in part likable, right? Like there's relatability and connectedness that's happening. But in part, you also want to be breaking rapport in some ways by challenging them in a positive way, right? Like if you're able to challenge some of their beliefs, you break some of that rapport and give them different ideas or ways to do things. And done that well, you're likable, but you're also a consultant, right? You're also a consultant who will challenge them. And that's what a good entrepreneur will value, that they want a mentor, they want a teacher, someone will help them, a good prospect rather. So, and then you're also showing business acumen throughout that process, which is also building respect and rapport by knowing their business, by asking the right questions. So those 3 things are what's also helping to facilitate the sale. Ultimately, at the end of it, at some point, right, whether it's on the first call or the second call, usually a sales call for a larger deal has multiple parts, but really it's broken down into 2 ways, and getting all the information you need and then presenting a solution typically takes 2 or 3 calls. When presenting the solution, right, you want to use their language, use their problems, and share what you're going to do for them in your proposal, in your presentation, all those sorts of things, and get them to envision and align with what their vision is for their business. If they want to go to $100 million, you paint the picture of how you're going to be part of that story, guiding them and shepherding them towards that direction. And then you're aligning with, right, what they really want. If you're able to do that, right, if you're able to show them how you're going to make them several $1 million, right, there's the path to that, or $1 million, or whatever it is, now it becomes very clear and justifiable to charge the $50,000 or $100,000 that you'd like to actually charge, right? They like you for thinking bigger and for making that kind of promise, and then you just execute and get them there. Final steps, right? It's just like making sure that their tactical things matter, like making sure that the decision maker, what their timeline is, if there's other decision makers, all those little things are all gaps that you want to find throughout that sales process to make sure that they can pull the trigger. Look for ways that this can go wrong, right? So that's it. After this call, I'll share with you guys, for anybody who wants it, right? For anybody who wants it, just connect with me on LinkedIn, or at Stephen Perchikov is my name, or shoot me an email at steven@artofsalesacademy.com. And just let me know you like some of these goodies, and we'll make sure to get it sent your way. We'll send you the sales process, the Mythic Content Workbook, the email that I use to start the business in case it inspires some of your outreach, and some templates for opening doors with enterprise level or difficult to reach stakeholders. So yeah, that's it. I think we're just in time for a couple minutes, 10 minutes or so of Q&A.
Yeah, just in time. There was one question about whether we will be sharing the slide deck or not. I don't know if you had plans to share the slide deck, but I know we will be sharing the recording. And then also you mentioned some of the things in there that were too small to read. You would also be sending out in PDFs. But what do you think about sharing the slide? Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm totally okay with that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we can include that after this as well. If anybody else has questions, be sure to drop them in there. I do have one question from very early on in the presentation. You talked a lot about, agencies undercharging and, being scared to maybe ask for more. So when you go into those conversations with these clients, do you kind of have to rip the Band-Aid off and just increase everything right away? Or is it more of a gradual thing that you guys slowly start to increase as you, start working with them?
Yeah, it's totally gradual, just like the mind and awareness grows gradually. And it only happens with repetitions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is somewhat gradual. But I think the core of it is them understanding that this is worth it. And it
Yeah.
is kind of obvious when you start guaranteeing and promising better results and they feel confident that they can deliver it, then it would feel silly to charge the price that they were charging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it might be too, is it more of a confidence thing you think on their end, to where maybe they don't think they should be charging as much, but you have to show them that they're worth more and their time is worth more and their services?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a big part of it. Yes.
Okay,
There's got to
awesome.
be a desire there. There's got to be an initial
Yeah.
desire there, and a willingness to go there for the client, for a lot of the clients we work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then one thing you mentioned during the presentation, this isn't really a question, but something that I've never thought of before. And I wonder if anybody thought the same thing, but when you send out your calendar invites, doing it through the calendar app instead of sending them just setting up a normal calendar invitation, it's such a good idea to do it that way, because like you said, then it'll send the reminders, then it will send almost those automated messages beforehand saying, hey, we're looking forward to this call. And so is that one of the main things that you see that sort of helps to stop those no-shows from happening, is doing those through the calendar app?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, especially for the colder leads.
Mm-hmm.
For warmer leads, they're going to show up anyway because they've seen your content, they're excited. But some of the
Mm-hmm.
cold ones who are kind of interested but aren't sure, you put them through the calendar app, and then they'll be warmer. There's a really big difference how they show up versus the other
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah. And two, even I guess, depending on what calendar app you're using, they have the option straight through that invite to then reschedule or cancel for, like you said, if you send over a couple times and the one you sent doesn't work, then they can do it right through there and you don't have to worry about it on your end.
Exactly right. Yes.
Mhm. All right. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions. I know we still have a couple minutes left here. So Stephen, any last thoughts, any last wrap ups?
No, I'm just super happy to have come to the call and
Yeah.
to speak with you and to share some of what we're
Hmm.
working on with your people. And
Yeah.
yeah, well, I hope
Yeah.
we speak again and keep the convo going.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I know this is super helpful for me, and I'm sure for others on the call as well. So I will make sure to get everything sent out to everybody. So the recording, will send out those PDFs that Stephen has, and then the slide deck as well. But if nothing else, Stephen, thank you so much. This was amazing. Like I said, so much good information in there. And yeah, I look forward to continuing speaking soon.
Sounds great. Okay.
All right.
Speak soon.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.